This is Praveen from the Forum of IT Professionals, and on behalf of ForIT, a very warm welcome to this session on inequality and the agrarian crisis. Today we have P. Sainath Garu, an eminent journalist, founder and editor of People's Archive of Rural India, who's formerly the Rural Affairs Editor at The Hindu, and is a pioneering journalist who brought to national attention the agrarian distress in the first place. And he has been covering almost all his life rural India and now archiving the whole of rural India. Sainath Garu, once again, thank you for joining us once again, and we would all love to hear you. In addition to Sainath Garu, we have the Chaurasta team over here. Hello, Chaurasta team. We have Anand, who is the lead lyricist, Srinivas, the guitarist, Yashwant and Akshay. All of these people, very warm welcome, and once again, thank you for joining us. And as you all know, Chaurasta has been quite a revelation in the music space. From bringing up nostalgic Telugu songs to the back to the forefront to progressive songs, something that have stirred us like no other. All of you have heard "Urali Pota Mama," "Anna Naganna," "Chei Chei Kalapagram," or even "Sagu Baruvaina," and most recently "Ye Angadi Poyedi Ye Rate Kammedi," something that really captures the essence of the farm bills and how it's going to affect the country. May I request that we start with the rendition from Yashwant and Akshay, the Ye Angadi Poyedi Ye Rate Kammedi song, and then we'll continue from there. Yashwant and Akshay.
Yeah. ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది ఎద్దు గుద్ద పొడిసి నేను వ్యవసమేదో చేస్తుంటే ఎద్దు గుద్ద పొడిసి నేను వ్యవసమేదో చేస్తుంటే గిట్టుబాటు నట్టి విరిచి వ్యాపారం చెయ్యమంటే ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు మేది ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది ఎరువు తెచ్చి ఎరువు వేసి కరువులోన పంట కోసి అరువు తెచ్చి ఎరువు వేసి కరువులోన పంట కోసి నీ కష్టము నీ ఇష్టము అమ్మకుంటే నష్టం అంటే ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది వానలోన వరదలోన సగం మునిగి పంట తీస్తే వానలోన వరదలోన సగం మునిగి పంట తీసి పలిసినోడు భారీగా డిస్కౌంట్ల సేల్ పెడితే ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది డిమాండ్ ఏదో సప్లై ఏదో తెలవకుండా నేనుంటే డిమాండ్ ఏదో సప్లై ఏదో తెలవకుండా నేనుంటే బియ్యానికి బ్రాండ్ వేసి గోదాములు నువ్వు అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది ఏ 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 అంగడి పోయేది రేటు కమ్మేది ఏ అంగడి పోయేది ఏ రేటు కమ్మేది ఏ అంగడి పోయేది
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Yashwant. So much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for entertaining us. Thank you for enlightening us as well. Thank you so much.
You can do one
can
more
I ask?
song. I think
perfect.
I think Yashwant needs to do one more song. Yeah. Yashwant.
Yeah. పల్లెటూరి పిల్లగాడా పసలగాసే మొనగాడా పల్లెటూరి పిల్లగాడ ముసలగాసే మొనగాడ పాలు మరసి ఎన్నాళ్ళయిందో ఓ పాల బుగ్గల జీతగాడ కొలువు కుదిరి ఎన్నాళ్ళయిందో ఓ పాల బుగ్గల జీతగాడ కొలువు కుదిరి ఎన్నాళ్ళయిందో ఓ సాలి సాలని సింపులంగి సల్లగాలికి సగము గాలి సాలి సాలని సింపులంగి సల్లగాలికి సగము గాలి కోనసింపు గొక్కెర పెట్టేవా ఓ పాల బుగ్గల జీతగాడ దాని కన్నాలెన్నో లెక్క పెట్టేవా ఓ పల్లెటూరి పిల్లగాడ ముసలగాసే మొనగాడ పాలు మరసి ఎన్నాళ్ళయిందో ఓ పాల బుగ్గల జీతగాడ కొలువు కుదిరి ఎన్నాళ్ళయిందో.
Fantastic. I must tell you all who was on the live stream, songs have always played a huge role in the revolutionary struggles. And this song in particular, I think, a lot of this was also connected to the Telangana armed peasant struggle as well. Right. This was in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and late 40s as well. It's a huge, it's a historical song. Time probably topic for another time. But once again, thank you, Yashwant, thank you, Akshay. It's also 1:30 in the night for Srinivas. Thank you for joining us, and Anand, the lyricist. Can you both briefly take us through what drove you to write this song? Ye angadi poyedi sagu baruvayena urelipotama. What drives your passion? Why did you want to talk to politics to people?
Yeah, so I will quickly talk on behalf of Chaurasta. Yeah. So we as Chaurasta have been working on music which is very socially relevant. We have picked up issues which are socially relevant. And as part of those, we have written songs like Raitu, Sagubar Vaina Raita, Urelipota Mama, Chai Kalpakra, and then Ye Angadi Poedi. And there are a few other songs which are there in the pipeline. And what drives us primarily is the ignorance of people to see the obvious things which are going around. The income inequality, the plight of the farmers, the narratives which are getting built. There's a lot of conditioning which is going on. And what we have felt is that people have stopped asking questions and conforming to whatever is being said. And that is something which has been driving us all throughout. And what we also try to do is, we don't have any solutions, but we say that ask the right kind of questions when it is required. And there's no harm in doing that. And that is one key thing which drives us. And for this song, like we've been discussing a lot of stuff. We sit together, we go over all the things which are going around, and then we speak to Anand. And Anand has been the mouth of Chaurasta. Like, he's been the one who has given every word for Chaurasta. We've been doing music, but he's the one who has given the words. And by words, he's made sure that they are extremely colloquial. People will understand it very easily. And that has also been the reason why people could catch on to the thing. So primarily, this is how we have worked, and this has been a driving thing. And Shamant is the one who has made the music for Ye Angadi Poedi, and he was supposed to join, but he is in a recording today. So I would want to, thank him again and again for the kind of music which he has given, which was just right for this song. And we really hope to make more such music, pick up issues as and when they need attention. We will do that. Yeah.
Anand garu, brief about మీరు పాట రాసినందుకు అసలు వర్డ్స్ ఆ లిరిక్స్ అది ఎలా ఏంటి?
యాక్చువల్లీ ఏంటి అంటే, ఇది బేసికల్గా మనకి ఎవరు ఎవరు దానికి స్పందించట్లేదు అనే ఒక ఉద్దేశం కొద్దీ మనం అది రాసాం. యాక్చువల్గా ఏంటి అంటే ఇది ఏదో ఎవరో చెప్తే రాసింది కూడా కాదు. ఏంటి అంటే మనకి ఏంటి అంటే మనకు ఒక అక్కడ ఒక ప్రాబ్లం ఉంది అని కాదు. యాక్చువల్గా ఏంటంటే మనం ఓన్గా ఫీల్ అయ్యి యాక్చువల్గా ఏంటి అంటే అక్కడ నిజంగానే కదా ప్రాబ్లం ఉంది అక్కడ అని ఓన్గా ఏంటి అంటే ఫీల్ అయ్యి రాసింది తప్ప ఇది ఏంటంటే ఎవరో ఫోర్స్ఫుల్గా చెప్పింది కూడా కాదు మనకి. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం శ్రీని ఏంటి అంటే మనం ఒకటి చేద్దాం దీని మీద అని యాక్చువల్గా నాకు తెలియదు. యాక్చువల్గా బేసికల్గా ఏంటి అంటే శ్రీని చెప్పే వరకు నాకు తెలియదు ఏంటి అసలు ఇది ఒక ఇష్యూ ఉంది, అసలు ఇట్లాంటి రైతుల చట్టాలు ఉన్నాయి అని. సో శ్రీని ఒక పాట రాద్దాం అన్నప్పుడు కూడా నాకు అసలు దాని గురించి ఏం తెలియదు, అసలు అది అవసరం లేదు అనుకున్నాను నేను యాక్చువల్గా. కానీ కాకపోతే శ్రీని ఒక 1 hour 2 hours డిస్కస్ చేసిన తర్వాత నాకే అనిపించింది అవును ఇంత ఉందా ఇందులో అసలు మనకు తెలియదు అని. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం ఇప్పుడు ఒక రైటింగ్ ఫీల్డ్లో ఉండి నాకే తెలియదు అంటే చాలా మందికి తెలియకపోవచ్చు కదా అని తర్వాత అనిపించి ఆ తర్వాత మళ్ళీ ఏంటి అంటే సరే రాద్దాం, కానీ నాకు తెలియదు నేను ఎంతవరకు జస్టిఫై చేయగలను సాంగ్కి అని అనుకొని ఆ తర్వాత కూర్చొని ఒక 1 nightలో ఫినిష్ చేసాం. కాకపోతే బాగా వచ్చింది. యాక్చువల్గా ఏంటంటే మీకు కూడా పంపించుంటాం యాక్చువల్గా రాయగానే, తర్వాత చాలా విని ఉంటారు. సో అప్పుడు అందరూ బాగుంది సాంగ్ అనుకుంటే షమంత్ చాలా మంచి మ్యూజిక్ ఇచ్చాడు దానికి, యశ్వంత్ కూడా వాడాడు దానిలో. సో అలా యాక్చువల్గా సాంగ్ వచ్చింది. దాని తర్వాత నేను మళ్ళీ ఈ సాంగ్ రాసిన తర్వాత నేను మళ్ళీ సాయినాథ్ గారి ఇంటర్వ్యూస్ చాలా చూశాను. సార్ మీ ఇంటర్వ్యూస్ చాలా చూశాను, అప్పుడు చాలా డాక్యుమెంటరీస్ చూశాను, మీ స్పీచెస్ విన్నాను. సో అప్పుడు చాలా ఎన్లైట్ అయింది యాక్చువల్గా, ఓహో ఇంత ఉందా అని. సో ఇది నేను ఇప్పుడు ఏం ఆలోచిస్తున్నానంటే అసలు ఇంత అసలు జనాలకి ఎలా వెళ్తుంది, దీన్ని ఎలా తీసుకెళ్ళగలుగుతాము అనేది, అంటే నిజంగా అక్కడ అసలు ఇంత రూరల్ పీపుల్కి ఎవరైతే వ్యవసాయం చేసేవాళ్ళో వాళ్ళకి తెలుసా తెలియదా అనేది కూడా డౌట్ ఉంది ఇప్పుడు నాకు. అంటే మనకి అంత వాళ్ళు అంత సీరియస్గా ఆలోచిస్తున్నారా లేదా అనేది కూడా అది నాకు చాలా డౌట్ ఉంది యాక్చువల్గా. అంటే వాళ్ళకి ఎవరు చెప్పాలి ఎవరు చేయాలి అనేది కూడా ఉంది, ఏమో ఐ డోంట్ నో. బట్ ఈ సాంగ్ కనుక నా ఉద్దేశం ఏంటంటే ఇలాంటి సాంగ్సే ఏమైనా వెళ్ళొచ్చు అని నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను. వాళ్ళ దగ్గర రీచ్ కావాలి అంటే వన్ ఆఫ్ ది సోర్స్ అయితే ఇదొకటి ఉంటుంది, అంటే ఇది ఒక మంచి కమ్యూనికేషన్ అని అనుకున్నాను. కాకపోతే సాంగ్ని ఎంత తీసుకెళ్ళాలి అనేది ఆలోచిస్తున్నాను ప్రస్తుతానికి.
Thank you, Anand. Srinivas, you wanted to say something?
No, again, adding on to the same thing, that there's a big narrative which is going on saying like only Punjab and Haryana, only 2 states are the ones who are feeling the heat and Jeffy. So this is something which has been going on for quite some time, and that is also the reason why we wanted the song to be in Telugu. But then now that once we have done it in Telugu, we also feel that the need for the song to be there in other languages is even more higher. So next step is very logical. It has to be in Hindi, which is what we will be working towards.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chaurasa team. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing these things. We really hope to see many more of these songs, and hope you'll be part of the culture over here. But I think we'll start with Sainath Garu as well. And as Srinivas was saying, a lot of people believe that this is mainly restricted only to farmers in Punjab and Haryana. Lot of questions on Twitter like, oh, if farmers have had problems for last 20 years, then why are they agitating only now? Or అసలు ఇప్పటిదాకా farmers కి ఏం ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ లేవా, పాత లాస్ అన్ని కరెక్టేనా, or what is happening, why is this happening, or the recent budget, does it actually help the farmers at all? I know Sainath has some views on the budget as well, but again, enough from me. Sainath Garu, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, once again, thanks to Chaurasta. Each time I hear them, it's like the first time. It has a freshness and beauty. Anand, what you said about asking the right questions, that is in fact the soul of journalism. It is not our job as journalists to provide answers and solutions, but journalism is the art of asking the right question. And Anand, what you were saying, and what you were saying also about words. What Srinivas was saying and attributing to Anand. There's from a centuries old poem by Dhyaneshwar, which says, "With words I shall give form to the formless and cause the senses to experience that which is beyond their power to know. With words I shall give form to the formless and cause the senses to experience that which is beyond their power to know." Okay, this is maybe 1,000 years old. I don't know. At least half a millennium old. I can't remember when Dhaneshwar's period existed, but that's there. Now about the talk. I first need to tell you that if you go up onto People's Archive of Rural India right away, you will find a piece which answers all these questions about Punjab, Haryana, rich farmers. One of the even more consistent than the narrative of Punjab is to say these are all rich farmers. Dismiss them. Okay. Now I'm going to show you why these laws are not just about Punjab and Haryana. They're not even just about farmers. They're about every single citizen, because they strike at the fundamental right of Indian citizens to seek legal remedy when they feel they have been wronged or denied justice. Many lawyers consider Article 32 of the Indian Constitution to be the most important fundamental right, the right to legal remedy. Now, Praveen, can I share screen here? Will you show me how to do that? Praveen, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry. Just made you the presenter. Now below the videos, the fourth icon after the video camera says share screen. Just below the videos on your screen.
Yeah. Okay, I'm clicking on that.
Yes.
And
then share what you want to show, either an application or the whole desktop.
I'm trying to show a PowerPoint thing here which has all these laws for you. But I'm not sure. Okay. Just a moment. No.
Yeah, I think something has started sharing. Anand, Srinivas, and I will be off our videos so that the presentation will become bigger.
But I'm not seeing it on. Come on.
We can see it. Can you open the presentation, Sainath, so that we will see that? If you just open the presentation, wherever the presentation is, just open the presentation.
I'm it in that box that's opened up. Let me stop sharing.
Okay.
And then get out of it and let me get out of it. Go back to the desktop. And check if I'm getting it.
Okay.
Share your screen. Application window, Chrome tab.
If you can share the presentation with me, send me your email. I'll upload it over here and we can do that as well. That I can do.
Okay. I think that is what I'm going to have to do because I'm not seeing it. Okay, I'm sorry about this, but let me just set it to you.
Yes.
Praveen. Just a moment. Very quickly, key indicators. Sorry. Oh, I'm Sorry about this. I don't know why it's not opening up. Just a second. Okay.
No problem at all.
Yep. Praveen, I've sent you a mail.
Okay, please carry on. I'll upload the presentation and let you know in a minute.
Yeah. So meanwhile, yeah. So one of the things is that it's only about Punjab and Haryana. And in the last few days, they are writing about how Tikayat has, from Western UP, has become the face of this movement, where it was UP, where it was supposed to have no impact. Do you know that one of the surveys, health assessment surveys done at Singhu, random, they were not searching for that data, but it came up in their survey that people from 45 districts across the country were present in the Singhu camp. That included people from Maharashtra, Rajasthan, UP, apart from Punjab and Haryana, from Bihar, from Andhra Pradesh, from Telangana. 40 to 45 districts people were present there. The fact that the media, that the corporate media, do not allow you to understand that it is that there is ferment everywhere, doesn't mean it doesn't happen, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The second thing, I was saying the laws on January 25th, in Maharashtra, 23rd, 24th, 25th, there were massive protests across the country. In Maharashtra on January 25th, the crowds were so large. Remember that Maharashtra is the worst affected state by the pandemic, the highest number of deaths due to COVID-19. With all these problems, 40,000 people gathered at the Azad Maidan, a crowd so big that even centrist and right-wing politicians raced to Azad Maidan, including Mr. Sharad Pawar, because the crowds were so huge. They were not going to miss that opportunity. These were farmers, okay, all of them, from 35 districts of Maharashtra. Second, the emphasis on Punjab and Haryana, and that these guys are rich farmers. I'm going to address that in a moment for you, but let's go to the idea of why these laws affect every single citizen. Now, in all laws of this nature, there is always an exclusionary clause. There we are. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Now, yeah, let it be there. Now, this is the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act, etc., etc. And then you have, can you move to the next? Yeah. Now look at the exclusion of legal remedies from here. Number 18. No suit, prosecution, or other legal proceeding shall lie against the government, the state government, the registration authority, the subdivisional authority, the appellate authority, or any other person. I repeat, any other person, for anything which is in good faith done or intended to be done under the provisions of this act or any rule made thereafter. What it means, translated into English, is you cannot go to the courts. If you are a farmer with a grievance, you cannot go to the courts against Ambani or Adani. You have to accept the decision handed over to you at the level of the registrational and subdivisional authority or appellate authority. That means collector, deputy collector, sub-collector, Tehsildar, Naib Tehsildar, these are going to be your appellate authority. And they are going to listen to you and treat you impartially and equally as they would Ambani and Adani. Now, if you want to believe in these fairy tales, be my guest. But you know what nonsense that is. Have you noticed that it not only says no legal proceeding shall lie against central or state government, it also says any other person. Who are those any other persons? That translates as corporations. Also look at the circumstances, the extent of immunity. Whatever they do, if it is done in good faith or intended to be done, not only am I giving you immunity for the crimes you're committing, I am giving you immunity for crimes you are yet to commit, which is in good faith done or intended to be done. The next clause makes it even more explicit. No civil court shall have jurisdiction to entertain any suit or proceedings in respect of any dispute which a subdivisional authority or the appellate authority is empowered by or under this act to decide, and no injunction shall be granted by any court. No injunction shall be granted by any court or other authority in respect of any action taken or to be taken in pursuance of any power conferred by or under this act or any rules made thereafter. Now, in the APMC Act, can we go to the next one, Praveen? Yeah. Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act. Now look at the clauses here. These clauses are strengthened here. Can we go to the next? No suit, no prosecution, or any other legal proceeding shall lie against the central government or the state government or any officer, even individual officer of the central government or the state government or any other person in respect of anything which is in good faith done or intended to be done under this act or of any rules or orders made thereunder. Now, by the way, it means not just farmers. If Swecha tomorrow, and these clauses are they're being inserted in all laws that are being made. It will come in your IT Act. It will come in many other acts, and I'll show you where it's already begun to come. But if Swecha says, no, this is unfair to farmers, and Swecha as a non-profit tries to file a PIL in the court, it will be thrown out without a hearing because the jurisdiction of civil courts is banned, not just to farmers, not just to disputes between farmer and corporation, but of any citizen having a problem with what is going on. Now, so you have given a sweeping immunity to crime and a sweeping amnesty for crime and a sweeping immunity for crimes yet to be committed. And the government, the BJP, state after state is introducing these clauses in laws other than farming and making them even stronger and nastier. Many of you, being in Andhra Pradesh, know of what's been going on in Karnataka, where they've tried bringing an extremely hyped up law to replace the old cow slaughter ban with something that is incredibly sweeping. They pushed it through assembly, they could not pass it in the council, legislative council. So they issued it as an ordinance. Praveen, maybe go to the next slide. Yeah, next one, please. It's the same one. Yeah. Go on, move a few slides, please. Move a few slides down. Next one. Next one. Further down. Further down. I'm sorry about this, but I wanted to come to this one. No. Further, please. Yeah. Karnataka Ordinance number 1 of 2021. The Karnataka Prevention of Slaughter and Preservation of Cattle Ordinance 2020. Now, look at what they've said. Persons exercising power under the ordinance deemed to be public servants. All persons exercising powers under this ordinance shall be deemed to be public servants within the meaning of section blah, blah, blah. Now, here is a law written for the VHP and Bajrang Dal. So tomorrow, I enter your house, I loot your house, I lynch you, I burn your property. I could well be deemed to be a public servant because I have acted in good faith. All those clauses are there. And it gives extraordinary powers of search and seizure, as low at the level of an inspector, but even all other persons exercising powers under this act. So this is where we are with these laws. Is any one of you willing to tell me now? Is any one of you now willing to tell me that these laws are only about farmers or only about Punjab? They have already popped up the clause in Karnataka. Please wait. You will see that they will come in land acquisition. They will come in displacement rules. They will come in one after the other laws. But even these three, the three farm laws and the Karnataka law, show you the systematic exclusion of civil court jurisdiction and of your citizens' right to legal redress. So I think that issue is settled. It's not just about Punjab and Haryana. It's not even just about farmers. It is about a systemic dismantling of democracy and the rights of citizens under their constitution. You are dismantling the constitution. Never forget that there are ministers in the union government who have said this constitution needs to be replaced. Why do we need this constitution? Mahesh Sharma said we have the Manusmriti, right? Centuries old wisdom. Yeah, and all of you know what the Manusmriti is about. So we won't go there today. Now, Praveen, I'm going to okay. At some point, I'm going to tell you to reopen the presentation and go to that. Sorry?
I said sure. Sorry. Go ahead.
I want you to reopen it at some. I'll tell you at which point, and go to that slide in between these, which said key indicators of agricultural households. Okay. Now, the rich. Let us talk about the rich farmers. Let's take those. See, Punjab and Haryana, rich farmers. The correct word is less worse off. Let me show you what the income of these rich farmers is. How rich? First of, okay, Praveen, can we go to that, reopen the presentation and go to the slide below those first 4 or 5 slides. Yeah, precisely. Can you open that? I'm not able to view it in a big size.
Just a minute, Sainath.
Yeah. Last time it was fine.
Yeah, doing that. One small request for the viewers who are viewing it on the live stream, for them the slides are a little small. I
will read it out.
Yeah. And also, if you can just turn your camera off and on, in which case then it will be good for them. I'll let you know when in just a few seconds.
Yeah.
I'm uploading the presentation. Should be there in a minute.
Yeah.
If you can just turn your camera off and on in just a minute.
Yeah. I've done that. So
we can't see you yet. I'm in the meanwhile trying to open the thing.
Yeah. You want me to turn my camera on and off?
On again. Now on, please.
Okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now,
much better now. Yes.
Now, can you just move one slide down? Yeah, here you are. What is this rich farmer in Punjab who's at Delhi's gates? What do they earn? What do they have? The total monthly in farmers' income, the National Sample Survey, your biggest data collection agency, does not calculate per capita income. Farming by its nature is a household activity, and they calculate monthly household income. The average monthly household income of the farm household in Punjab is 18,059 rupees for a household size of 5.24 persons. So you want to calculate that per capita. 18,000 itself is bad enough. But if you want to calculate that per capita, that 18,059 divided by 5.24 gives you a figure of less than 3,450 rupees per capita, monthly per capita income of the farmer. This rich farmer of Punjab, the average monthly per capita income is 3,450, and from all sources of income, not just cultivation. The monthly household income calculation includes cultivation, livestock rearing. It includes wage labor, which you know in Andhra and Telangana, lakhs of farmers also do some wage labor. Salaries, non-farm businesses, income from all these sources, comes to 18,059 rupees. In fact, 3,446 rupees per capita. In that, cultivation and farming accounts for only 62% on average. Okay? That salary, that income of 3,446 rupees, please note, that is lower than the lowest salary in the organized sector. Find me a salary that is lower than that in the organized sector. In the case of Haryana, okay, the total income, monthly income per capita, household income monthly is 14,434 rupees. That is per capita 2,450 rupees approximately. 2,450 rupees. Please just divide it by 30 and find out what you get for it. Yes, these Punjab, Haryana farmers are much better off than farmers in Mr. Modi's Gujarat, who should have been living in paradise by now, but theirs is 7,926. Okay, 2.5 times less than Punjab. 7,926 rupees, and the household size there is 5.2. Haryana is 5.9, by the way. Household size in Gujarat is 5.2. That gives you a monthly per capita income of 1,524 rupees. Do you even want to undergo the humiliation of dividing that by 30 and finding out what daily per capita income is? Yeah, it puts, the NREGA puts that to shame. Yeah, the NREGA in some states does better than that, except that it only gives you 100 days per household in the whole year. The average income for the whole nation, is 6,426 rupees for a household size of 5.1, which means that the monthly per capita income of the Indian farmer is less than 1,300 rupees a month. And by the way, you want to look at Andhra Pradesh, you're right down there. 5,979. Yeah. And Andhra household size is about 5 again. So you can calculate how badly our farmers are. Yeah. And these are rich farmers. Please tell me, how many rich people do you know who sleep in tin metal trolleys in the open with contending with temperatures of 2 degrees Celsius and less in what is perhaps Delhi's coldest winter in 70 years, certainly the coldest day in 70 years, when they had 1.1 degrees Celsius. 200 farmers, protesters, have died in the last 2 months. 200 farmers have died, mostly of hypothermia. The cold has killed them, right? Not COVID, cold. And these are your rich farmers. How many rich people do you know willing to sleep out in the open in metal trolleys, which makes the cold even colder, as you know, yeah, at 2 degrees Celsius, who bathe in the open at 5 degrees or 6 degrees Celsius? Yeah, these are rich people. I must say, this has given me a far more generous appreciation of the Indian rich than I ever thought I would have. They are a hardier lot than we thought if they are willing to do all this. What is also shameful, my friends, what is utterly shameful in this demonizing hypocrisy, what is shameful is that those tweeting rich Punjab farmers, the Surjit Ballas, the Gulatis, these people earn more in a day than the entire Punjab farm household in a month. Some of them earn more in an hour. In an hour. Yeah, if you're director IMF or whatever, you earn more in an hour than these farmers own in a month. And you trash them saying these farmers are seeking, they are seeking socialism for rich farmers. The utter obnoxious people who are earning more in an hour, and if you want to calculate in Ambani's earnings, milliseconds, they earn more than what these guys do in a month. And these people sit there trashing them on media, calling them rich farmers. Okay? So please have an understanding of who is a farmer and who is rich. What is the average income for the farmer across the country? Compare it to any other sector. Compare it to any other sector and look at the sheer hypocrisy of it. So that's yet another aspect. One. Third, in the last few days, let me tell you that from Maharashtra, 2,000 farmers from Nashik alone went to Delhi. Many of them went to Shahjahanpur, which is the Rajasthan-Haryana border, and one of the 5 camps. Some went to Singhu. Everybody was supposed to come back after a while. Several have stayed on as volunteers in the camps. They have stayed on as volunteers in the camps. They have stayed on to do cooking, cleaning, swabbing. Adivasi women farmers from Maharashtra have worked as volunteers in those camps. Tell me that it's only okay. Now, there is the behavior of the government made Mr. Rakesh Tikayat incredibly bigger than he was. It brought national attention to him because of the way they tried brutally, scorching him and crushing him. Mr. Tikayat, I am willing to say, has 10 times the support he did today before this agitation. Yeah. Everybody is coming to his aid. Also, you have to understand that this agitation is being propelled not by leaders, but by farmers. That's why 40 organizations, not 32 anymore, they're more, though they have expelled 2, but almost 40 organizations have maintained their unity because the masses behind them are saying, don't let us down. Let's fight. That is what is going on. Then, what are these fights over the APMC and MSP and stuff? There is a history to this. But first, let me explain to you what this APMC is. The APMC, the APMC, Praveen, I might go back to the presentation. I've minimized it, and I might go back to it to show them Mr. Modi's remarkable contribution in a previous avatar. So, in the idea, the third part of propaganda is the agricultural producing marketing produce committees, the mandis, have given a monopoly. They have a monopoly over agricultural trade, and the poor farmer has no choice. It tells me of the extent of public ignorance that people are able to tell such brazen, shameless lies. In India, the private trade has always had a greater monopoly over agricultural produce. As you and I are talking just now, the peasant in Kalahandi is pledging his 2023 crop to the moneylender, to the Sahukar, to the Mahajan. Why is he pledging 2023 crop? Because he has already pledged the 2021 crop 2 years ago at a price set by the moneylender. Most agricultural produce in India, in most states, in most regions, is sold at the farm gate. It never goes to the APMC. Your question should be how not to remove it from Punjab and Haryana, but how to make sure that the farmers of Andhra Pradesh, the farmers of Tamil Nadu, of Gujarat, and of the Assam also have access to a better deal with MSP. The farmers of Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Haryana have fought with their organized strength and made a bad system, a flawed system, work better for them. I want to tell you this. The APMC has never been a paradise, but it came into being precisely because of private monopolies, because of private traders hoarding food. Today, what the laws will do is to bypass tens and thousands of small traders, commission agents, and concentrate it in 4 corporations. Are you making the price situation better, or are you making it worse? When there are just 4 corporations, or 2 maybe, and millions of farmers, who's going to have the bargaining power? Yeah. Out of those tens of thousands of traders they displace, the companies will hire 3 or 4 out of each 10, because Mr. Ambani and Adani are not going to dirty their shoes going to the mandi and negotiating. So they will incorporate the old commission agent. They will incorporate the old Sahukar, some of them, but those people are no longer free independent actors. They are agents of the corporations. The greater the concentration of power, I don't need to tell you that, in any field, whether in media, for instance, the greater concentration of power, the greater the monopoly, the greater the loss to the public. Whether it's the telecom sector, whether it is the media sector, whether it is the agriculture sector, the concentration of power in the hands of 2, 3 large giant corporations, what will be their bargaining power vis-a-vis millions of unorganized farmers? Here, I want to tell you one more thing. I already showed you that people are protesting in all parts of the country, not just Delhi, not just Punjab, not just now Haryana. In Haryana, please know this. The chief minister has not been able to go to a public meeting in 2 months. No one is able to step out of their house. Now that's coming in Western UP. No major leader of the government can enter Western UP today and address a meeting. Okay, but even having said that, let me get back to the issue of monopoly. In the 60s, hoarding was rampant as big traders kept lots of produce hoarded, and the peasant can never hoard. Okay, the peasant can never hoard. How long? And especially the peasant cannot hoard perishable goods. And even if they could, how much can they? So the peasant was never a hoarder. The misery caused by private traders, the misery caused by private money lenders, the misery caused by hoarding, the hunger and hunger deaths that resulted from it, that led to these laws in the 1960s. The APMC Act, all these came as a means of protecting the peasant from racketeering. Now these laws withdraw all those. The Essential Commodities Amendment Act essentially says that none of these commodities are essential anymore. It withdraws pulses, oils, cereals, all these from essential commodities. Just like taking away the most important drugs and medicines from the drug price control order, or simply scrapping that order. Now what happens? As it is, the traders have a much greater hold. The MSP, the APMC gave the farmer an assured price. And as every one of you who talks to a farmer in Andhra Pradesh will know, the dream of that farmer is to find an assured price, to find a stable price, and to know which commodity is going to get what price so that she or he can plan their crop and their harvest accordingly. Okay, now that's gone. Mr. Adani, his company has built thousands of silos of storage, yeah, in the name of facilitating the FCI. Many of these silos were built even before these laws came. Yeah, somebody knew that the laws were coming. Now, one question which Praveen asked me, saying that this is on the minds of a lot of people, and in fact said at the beginning of this talk, why are the farmers protesting now? For God's sake. They are not protesting now. They have been protesting for decades. It is farmers who have been demanding the reform of the APMC. It is the farmer who has been demanding the reform of the Mandi. And it is the farmer who has been demanding the reform of agriculture. The question is, who are the reforms for? Are they for the farmers or are they for the corporations? In these three laws, there is not a thing that is for the farmers, not a whiff of a reform that favors the farmers. It's entirely for the corporations. Now you asked why the farmers are protesting at this time. Because the laws were brought at this time. The real question for you to ask, my friends, the real question for you to ask is this. Why were the laws passed at this time? Mr. Modi and the NDA were in power for 5 years from 2014 to 19. They had a majority. From 2019 April to March 25th, 10 months, almost 11 months, 10 months, because from May 2019 to March 2020, the BJP had a big majority on its own in the Lok Sabha. But it did not bring the laws. Now, when the pandemic is over and under control, say in a year or so, the Modi government will still have 2 years of a huge majority. They could have brought these laws in 2014 to 19. They did not. They could have brought these laws between May 2019 and March 2020. They did not. They could bring these laws, they could have brought these laws after the pandemic is over when they still have a huge majority. They didn't think of that. They brought it at this time on a calculation urged by their think tanks, their captive intellectuals, their Godi media. What was the purpose of bringing it in September 2020? First, they brought ordinances in June 5. They issued these, promulgated these laws as ordinances on June 5, 2020. When the farmers knew that these ordinances were coming, they held protests all over in front of collectorates. By the way, there were protests in Andhra Pradesh. Okay? Before the collectorate offices, etc., saying, don't do these, don't pass these laws, talk to us. But they issued them as ordinances on June 5. Then the farmers again took delegations, went to Delhi, went to capital cities, spoke to ministers. They brought it without changing a word to Parliament on September 14th. In the next few hours before September 20th, they had passed all these 3 laws and, very importantly, 4 labor laws as well. They took 29 labor laws, simplified them into 4 codes entirely drafted by the corporate world. So it's not just farmers. Why did they pass those laws at that time? The calculation was very simple. The calculation was these dehatis, these rural yokels, they are paralyzed by the pandemic. Dar mein baithe hain ghar mein. They are covering before COVID. Now is the time to pass the laws. They cannot resist. Please note, Mr. Shekhar Gupta, former chief editor of the Indian Express, on his print Cut the Clutter TV thing, what did he say? He urged the government months ago, this is the time to strike. What did he say? He said, never waste a good crisis. Dr. Ashok Gulati told the government, told the Prime Minister, you are now presented with a 1991 moment, just like Manmohan Singh was in 1991. You can really race ahead with reforms. The Panagarayas, the Bhallas, Mr. Swaminathan S. Iyer wrote in the Times of India, we should use a velvet glove, but an iron fist to smash opposition and get through these reforms, pass them. So the government, listening to all its Jyotishis and soothsayers, agreed this was the time to smash through these people because they're too frightened of COVID, too demoralized to come out and protest. And that was a fatal miscalculation. You and I need to be thanking the farmers of Punjab, Haryana, West UP, all those other farmers who've gone there from 10, 12 other states. We need to be thanking them, showing them our gratitude because they are fighting for every one of us. If it is not just one, as I said, they are fighting for your fundamental right to legal remedy. Second, these laws, by introducing unregulated trade next to regulated trade, are going to destroy regulated trade. Okay, if you're going to say, okay, this is tax-free for the operator, and you're not bothered about the farmer or the public, you're going to slowly bleed the regulated market system to death. Maybe not even slowly. Now, please tell me tomorrow Where will the government procure for the PDS? It will be produced, it will have to be procuring from private markets, not from the APMCs, because they would have died in a couple of years, 3 years. Maybe they'll die slowly, maybe they'll die more rapidly than we think. But they are already gutted by the law. Now, if you're going to start procure food grain from private actors, what prices will you have? It means, my friends, the end of the PDS and the gutting of food security of the Indian nation. That's why these laws are much bigger than Punjab, Haryana, wheat and rice, much bigger than farmers, much bigger than just legal exclusion, which is huge, but it also means you are saying goodbye to your PDS and to your to the entire fair price system. So it affects every single citizen at multiple levels. Yeah, anyway, your Food Security Act. In any case, your Food Security Act shows, what does it show? It shows about 1/3 of your population, 30% or so, are anyway excluded. Now, what kind of prices are you going to be able to do? This last August, we had 104 million tons of food grain in the buffer stock. And you had a public that was hungrier than it had been in 70 years. But you did not flood the markets with grain to bring the prices down. In fact, you are hoarding that grain, the state is hoarding that grain to keep the traders' prices up. Because if you release even 20% of that 104 million tons, now 80 million tons, if you release even 20% of that 104 million tons, prices of food grain would crash on the market. They were being artificially upheld, which meant that we have done a palti with the original purpose of the public distribution system, which was meant to moderate the price market. It was used, the market price, it was used to sustain the market price at whatever price it was. So those farmers are fighting. And thirdly, MSP. Will an MSP guarantee? MSP guarantee means bullshit, unless there is a guarantee of procurement. Now, where are you going to do the procurement if you have destroyed the APMCs and mandis? If those die there an unnatural death by strangulation, how does it matter what MSP you name? Where will you procure? Where will your money come from? That is, at what price will you procure? That's another question that you have to worry about. Now, consider the MSP. I'm going to use some detail to explain to you what the formulas are, so that, I mean, you're a highly educated and intelligent audience. You can grapple with a little complexity. In 2014, Mr. Modi came to power promising. If I am elected, if you vote for the Bharatiya Janata Party, within 12 months of coming to power, we will implement the Swaminathan Commission's recommendation. They meant one recommendation. There are many recommendations. The Swaminathan Commission report consists of 5 distinct reports, the last one having 2 volumes, and also a national policy for farmers, a draft national policy for farmers. The first of these reports was submitted in December 2004 in Parliament to the Agriculture Minister. The last of these reports was submitted in 2006, October. For 15-16 years, they have lain in Parliament 9 years under the UPA, 6 or now 7th year of the 6 years of the NDA, without a single day's discussion, without a single day. Opposition leaders in the Rajya Sabha like Sitaram Yechuri asked for a special discussion on the Swaminathan report. It was never allowed by the chairman or vice chairman or whoever it was at the time. Now, in 2014 election, Mr. Modi promised, elect me, elect my government, elect my party. Within 12 months, we will fulfill that, implement the Swaminathan recommendation of MSP, minimum support price, should equal cost of production plus 50%. They came to power, crores of farmers voted for them. In 2015, the government, which had said we will implement this in 12 months, instead submitted the affidavits to courts, to a court, saying we cannot implement this. It's not feasible. It will distort market prices. The very guys who said implement within 12 months submitted a legal affidavit saying not possible. It'll, never mind if it distorts the lives of generations of farmers, but you can't distort the prices of the market, right? So they did that. 2016, the then agriculture minister, Mr. Radha Mohan Singh, flatly denied that we have never made such a promise. That is, Radha Mohan Singh, 2016, though it's there in their manifesto, in their pamphlets, in the 70 speeches of Mr. Modi, the promise is there, but he denied it. 2017, the BJP told us, forget this Swaminathan fellow, it's all dated. Look at the extraordinary model, much further than Swaminathan, in Madhya Pradesh, introduced by Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Shivraj Singh Chauhan's model, even as it was being celebrated, ended with the police killing 5 farmers in Mandsaur. And it is at least one of the reasons that he subsequently lost the election. 2018, Mr. Jaitley, in the budget speech, I'm telling you the exact paragraph 13 and 14, Mr. Jaitley not only acknowledged that the government had made a promise, he said we have implemented it. We've already implemented it in the Rabi, cost of production plus 50%, and we will implement it in the Kharif also. The game, my friends, was how you define cost of production. There are 3 methods in vogue. There are many methods, but the 3 in vogue, first is A2, measuring cost of production purely in terms of the input costs. Whatever you paid, for your seed, your fertilizer, your pesticide, paid out input cost, that is the cost of production. So that plus 50% is the promise. The second category was A2 plus FL, input costs plus family labor, imputed cost of family labor. If that family were being paid for their labor, as every one of us is wherever you and I work, then A2 plus FL is a higher price, obviously higher than A2. Swaminathan promised nothing of this. Swaminathan Commission's recommendation was COP or C2 plus 50%. Cost of production in Swaminathan is defined as comprehensive cost of production, including rental value of land, interest on loan. Tell me something. Some of you may be entrepreneurs. Is there any business in the world, any industry in the world that does not count rental values rents, interest rate on loans. Is there any industry you're aware that does not factor these into cost of production? But for farmers, we denied. What Mr. Modi has done is to implement in some crops, not even in all that they are due to, but in a few crops, implement A2 plus FL and say, see, cost of production plus 50%. The difference between A2 plus FL and Swaminathan's comprehensive cost of production is 400 to 500 rupees per quintal of wheat. So if you get A2 plus FL, you will get maybe, suppose you get, the difference between that and what you get by selling at Swaminathan's recommendation is 400 to 500 rupees per quintal. So suppose you took 20 quintals of wheat to the market, you've straight away lost 10,000 rupees. And look at I gave you the income figures of the Indian farmer. Tell me what 10,000 rupees means to them. And this brings me to the inequality issues. You have seen the legal inequalities being legalized. But what about income inequalities? I told you what the farmers are losing. I told you what the farmers are earning. What do Mr. Ambani and Adani and India's dollar billionaires, what do they earn? What is their power? What is their bargaining power? Before we come to that, try understanding the APMC in a different light. Try understanding it. Most of you are middle class people. Try understanding the APMC the way you understand a government school. None of us send our children to government schools, right? Unless you have no choice, you won't send your child to a government school. Unless you have no choice. But millions of Indian children go to government schools because their parents cannot afford anything else. In the last 40 years, successive Indian governments have devastated the field of education in this country. Now it's online education which is pushing out the poor completely. Now, despite our mistrust of the government school, neither you nor I suspect anyone in this audience, is going to call for a complete closure of government schools. That you've got to be Surjit Balla or Gulati or someone to call for such nonsense. Why do we not ask for the closure of government schools? We do not ask for the closure of government schools because we know that for tens of millions of Indian children, it is the only chance they have of getting something approaching an education. Second, it is the only place in the world where tens of crores of Indian children, crores and crores of Indian children have one decent meal a day, which is the best meal of their day. Do you know? I mean, if you remove the midday meal, what's there? What attendance will you have? Where will the children will go? During the pandemic, when the schools closed down, all the studies are showing us a sharp rise in malnutrition, a sharp rise, and even before the pandemic, they are showing us in typical areas a rise in malnourishment. So we are not going to ask for the closure of government schools because we know these children will die. Now, I'm asking you to understand the APMC. I'm asking you to understand the government school as the APMC of the education sector. I'm asking you to understand the PHC and the district hospital as the APMC of the health sector. Friends, India is 90% a privatized health system. Yet, who saved the maximum number of lives during the pandemic? Tell me, if the district and local government hospitals were not there and they were all private, would not the number of deaths be many times more? So you don't call for the closure of district and government hospitals. Though successive governments have been handing over government hospitals to private management. Yeah. Understand the APMC as the government school of the agrarian sector, as the district hospital of the agrarian sector. It is in bad shape, but it is essential to the survival of millions. The point should be to improve it, make it better, take it to everyone, have an MSP on not just rice and wheat. There is an MSP naam ke vaste on 23 crops, but you can't access it. Allow people to access it, get past the hurdles where governments collaborate with private traders and corporations to stop people from getting their food grain, from selling their food grain. Once again, I'm repeating, all this MSP, whatever you can put very high MSPs and not procure, which is what Maharashtra did every time there were high suicides in Vidarbha and Marathwada. High MSP and bonus prices would be announced. They would not procure. They would procure much less. They would procure late. They would stop procurement early. Okay. Now, let us look at rural India's wealth, and let us look at the wealth of India's billionaires who are attempting through these laws to take over Indian agriculture. They already have substantially taken over parts of it. Now they want to make the whole show. In 1991, India did not have a single dollar billionaire when we embarked on these reforms of this kind. In year 2000, India had $12 billionaires. In year 2012, 13, India had $53 billionaires. In 2018, Forbes magazine, which is dedicated to billionaires, announced that India had $121 billionaires. Not only did it have $121 billionaires, which made us number 4 in the world in dollar billionaires. The country which is 130 at that time, 131 in the Human Development Index, was number 4 in the dollar billionaire index. You can see how the rich were doing, how the poor were doing. Now, out of those 121 individuals in a population of 1.3 billion, 121 guys, their wealth was equivalent to 22% of gross domestic product. 121 individuals. On the other hand, as the Credit Suisse, as the multinational bank Credit Suisse, its global wealth data handbook shows you, the top 1% of the Indian population owns 53% of all household wealth. The top 10% of the Indian population, this is a multinational bank, not the mouthpiece or publication of a radical communist party. The top 10% own more than 76%. The bottom 60%, their share of total household wealth is around 5%. The bottom 50% is less than 4.6% or something like that. The bottom 10%, the 10th decile, their share of total household wealth is now minus 0.9, which means that their liabilities are racing far ahead of their assets, that they are neck deep in debt. The bottom 30%, almost their ownership of household wealth is roughly 0. This is where your farmers come, that bottom 30%. That's where they come in. Even if they came in the bottom 50%, they're very badly off. Now, in those $121 billionaires, you know who the lead name was? Mukesh Bhai. In the Forbes tells us that in 1 year, in 12 months, Mr. Ambani added $16.9 billion to his wealth. Yeah, that's about when all the laws were rewritten for Geo, for various, in the telecom sector, all sorts of things were done which favored Mr. Ambani. But he earned $16.9 billion additionally in that year. $16.9 billion in 2017 was 1,05,000 crores. Now compare that to your average Indian who works on, we can say common man or common woman, is somebody who works on the Narega, on the Employment Guarantee Program. It would take 18.7 million Narega workers to work 1 year without stop to equal what Mr. Ambani earned. This is your level playing field. You have got the most disgusting inequalities, and we are making them greater and greater through these laws. We are actually sanctifying, and the media are celebrating these inequalities. This year we got 121 billionaires. We'll know on March 8th when those dates come. Okay. So you're looking at an extremely divided, extremely impoverished bottom 50% and a bottom 30% that is sinking rapidly. 5 years ago, the bottom 10% actually had ownership of all household wealth equal to 0.1%. They've gone from 0.1% to minus 0.9%. Imagine what the compression of their diet, the compression of their earnings, the compression of their living standards, what people have been subjected to. I leave you with one thing, because, January 30th was the martyrdom day of Mahatma Gandhi. When Mahatma Gandhi, 103, he was murdered by Nathuram Godse, a Hindu fundamentalist fanatic belonging to this logic of belonging to the milieu and training of the Sangh Parivar, what was then the Sangh Parivar. Gandhi, 103 years ago, this man called Mohandas Karamchand went to Bihar, to Champaran. Yeah, he saw a line between the Sarkar, the Angrezi Sarkar, and the exploited, terrible misery of the peasant of Champaran. Ask yourself this question, my friends. Which side of the border did the Mahatma go? Ask yourself this question. If the Mahatma were in Delhi today, alive, which side of Delhi border would he go? Would he stay with the central government, or would he cross over into Singhu and Tikri? Which side of the border in the battle between, we keep saying Punjab and Haryana only, Punjab and Haryana only. The last time I verified it, Punjab and Haryana were also states of the Indian Union. They're not in China. They're not in Bangladesh or Pakistan. They're Indians. What happens there matters to every one of us. If Gandhi were alive today, which side of the Singhu border would he be on? I ask you today, which side of the border are you and I on? Which side of the border should you and I choose to be on? Thank you.
Thank you, Sainath Garu. There are a couple of questions. I'll start with the first one. Yeah. Shashi asks, and this is regarding the legal clause. Does the clause which bans anyone from approaching any court mean that this law can only be amended by the parliament? Shouldn't these laws, which deny right to justice, never be allowed to be presented in the parliament? So that's one. The other one is, does the budget have anything in place for the farmers this year? These are the two that we have as of now.
Okay. The simpler one is the budget. It has nothing for farmers this year. It is one of the most remarkable budgets in the planet because there is no great expenditure post-pandemic. Everywhere in the world, budgets have been transformed. There is no recognition. You won't recognize the budgets, post-pandemic budgets to the pre-pandemic budgets. Nothing of that sort has happened here for poor people. One of the incredible claims made in the budget, I'll just deal with one, is health spending has been doubled. Do you know how health spending has been doubled? They've included a one-time cost of 35,000 crores on the vaccination program into the health budget. That is not part of the health budget at all. That is a national calamity that is being dealt with by every country in the world. So you're counting, it's like, by the way, in the education budget, the Congress government started the practice of putting NSS, Scouts, all under education budget. So likewise, one-time vaccination program, one-time cost of 35,000 crores or thereabouts of the vaccination of program has been included. Second, water and sanitation, entirely a separate head, has been put into the budget without bringing any new allocations for it. So whatever was the existing thing, whatever they've given for water and sanitation is now counted as part of the health budget. What you needed was the embarking on a giant national health system of the kind the UK proudly had till Mrs. Thatcher began to dismantle it. Okay. That is one set of things. The second thing is, please look at who is celebrating the budget. Since January 31st, on your television screens, who have you been seeing in the national media? Have you you've seen CEO of Kotak Mahindra or CEO of airline, some airline, CEO of Tata's, whatever. How many? Pantulu garu chusara from Vizag, farmer. Were they there in those distinguished panels which kept saying how great Mr. Modi's resolve has been? The budget, simply, it is a meaningless thing. What it has done, its meaning, is that it has put an official stamp on inequality and deprivation. That is what it has done. The other thing, the parliament. And by the way, the budget from the time of the Congress government has lost more and more meaning because giant measures are taken outside the budget. Whether it was GST or demonetization, none of these came with the budget. The giant policy measures have been taken outside the budget. So anyway, budget has simply become a way. By the way, there was no change in tax slabs, nothing. Okay, even for the middle classes. It was a corporate budget. Parliament. Yes, I don't know who asked that question, but these laws came up in Parliament. Let me explain to you. I said June 5, they were promulgated as ordinances. September 14, they were brought to Parliament. And I'm glad you asked this question because I will tell you about another gigantic violation of law and constitution that occurred. They rammed it through. The members of Parliament appealed and begged that follow procedure, submit these laws, the draft laws, to the Standing Committee on Agriculture. And Parliament has select committees for different subjects. It has select committees on taxation, on whatever. It has select committees. And the Standing Committee on Agriculture is considered one of the most important committees of Parliament. The chairman of the Standing Committee has got, I think, cabinet rank, um, um, in government, like the chairman of like the leader of the opposition. There's almost a cabinet rank for this person, and still they would not consult that committee. They would not give it to the select committee. Then the parliamentarians protested this. They rammed it through with a voice vote. Now, I don't know if any of you are aware of this. In the Constitution of India, there is no such thing as a voice vote. It's a convention or a practice governments have evolved and adopted. But a serious issue like this requires an actual division of vote on the floor of the House. Please, former Secretary Generals of the Lok Sabha have written in the Hindu saying there is no provision for a voice vote in the Constitution of India for this or for any other subject. It's a practice or a precedence-based thing, but there is nothing in the law that allows you to do that, that encourages you to do that, let alone allows you to do it. So you resorted to a voice vote, and even then, the government was so scared that it would not pass that they suspended and threw out 8 members of parliament in the Rajya Sabha. They suspended and threw these members out, passed the bill in voice vote. Those 8 members would have made the difference in their calculation. Those 8 members might have made the difference between defeat and victory. Third, immediately after they threw these members of parliament out, remember, there were walkouts in parliament. What did they do? They immediately passed the labor laws as well. This is the history of how these laws were passed. Okay, one of the things about these farm laws, which I forgot to mention, and thanks to you, I'm the questioner here, thanks to you, I'm reminded of it. All those clauses I showed you, what do they achieve? Sub-collector, deputy collector, collector, tehsildar. You know what the law has done, these 3 laws? They have converted the executive into the judiciary. These are guys who are going to decide, and the courts cannot come into it. Not only have you converted the executive into the judiciary, you have converted a very low-level executive, a bloody tahsildar or deputy collector, sub-appellate authority. He becomes judiciary. It is an astonishing dismantling of democratic systems. And I should tell you that the Bar Council of Delhi very rarely stands up and shouts. It wrote a letter to the Prime Minister of India saying, one, this is a tinkering with the violation of the right to legal redress, Article 32 of Constitution. 2, it made another professional observation. It said, Mr. Prime Minister, with these laws, you are destroying the district level courts of the country, because most of the business before them is land related, agriculture related. It said you will destroy the provisions and livelihoods of lawyers as you destroy the district courts, and they have no power. Bar Council of Delhi. And Justice Gopala Gowda, former Chief Justice, Justice Kadju, one after the other, they have spoken about the unconstitutionality of these laws. And thank you again, I forgot a key point which your question brought before me. In the Indian Constitution, there are 3 lists of legislation: central list, concurrent list, and state list. The state list is a list of subjects on which only the states can legislate. The central list is one on which list of subjects on which only the center may legislate. defense, things like that. And the concurrent list, both center and state may legislate, but if there is a tug, the centers will more likely prevail. Agriculture is not on the concurrent list, it is not on the central list, it is on the state list. You have passed these laws without consulting the farmers. You have passed these laws without consulting the state governments. You have passed these laws without consulting the BJP state governments. You have passed these laws without consulting parliament. You have passed these laws without consulting the Standing Committee on Agriculture. You have passed these laws without consulting your own cabinet. No BJP member knew what was coming, like in the demonetization. Who did you consult? When Mr. Adani starts building storage silos, you know who they consulted, or rather, who gave them directions on what to do. So this is what actually happened. September 20th, they smashed.
Sainath, there are quite a few questions. I've put them up in the shade notes for your reference. I'll try and club some of them. I'll read it out because I'm going to club them together as well. So there were questions around, for example, Geeta Gopinath of IMF told that these three are good for the farmers, or how this Jaiprakash Narayan is not the older one, the new Lok Satta person. He's also saying that these laws are good for the farmers, and I'm confused. Then there's a question around how do we understand the so-called celebrities and Bharat Ratnas comments on foreign celebrities' support for the farmer protest. I'm going to put these three in one bucket. Geeta Gopinath, this in one bucket. Then there's another two questions which are similar. Jay Kumar asks, what is the remedy and how to bring about it? Eminent citizens can present this as a memorandum to this effect or something like that. Then Srinivas asks, let's say if the government decides to add a clause which says buyers can't buy below the MSP, will that protect farmers? Because what should be the ideal recommendation? Because privatization will be pushed eventually and middlemen has to go out. So how do we come up with laws which generate buyer interest but also protect the farmers? Right. So these two, I'm going to work on that thing. Then Abhinay asks, should I hold on there? I'll hold on. Hold on.
Privatization, by the way, please understand something. Why do we take it for granted that privatization has to go through? If the people of the country are mindful that they do not want something privatized, they can stop it. Right? Second, please understand, I find this hilarious about privatization of agriculture. Agriculture is the country's largest private sector. Your farmers in Andhra and Telangana, are they working for some public sector company that I don't know about? They are private producers. They are petty producers. The point is not privatization, it is corporatization. You're taking an asset out of the hands of petty private producers, millions of whose livelihoods depend on it, and handing it over to 3-4 corporations. That is ultra privatization, hyper privatization, when you put it in the hands of 3 or 4 people. So that's one thing that you got to know. Second, is the presentation still? It's there, right? I mean, I can.
I'll put it up. Please do continue. I'm going to put it up.
Okay, I'll tell you when. In 2011, you should know this about the MSP. Srinivas, there was the Consumer Affairs group consisting of chief ministers, chief secretaries. Consumer Affairs Group 2011 was formed by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. The Consumer Affairs Group gave a report in 2011. It said exactly what you are recommending, Srinivas. It said categorically, and to our delight, all of those who read it, it said 2 things. 1, no transaction should be allowed between trader and farmer, which is below the MSP. Do you want to put up that slide? It's below the Modi photograph. Go there, please. Have you found it?
Yes. It says enforce MSP. Same.
Yeah. Can you put it up?
Yeah, it is there. It is there. People are saying that. I think you've minimized it. You'll have to probably click on restore presentation, which is bottom right corner. Bottom right corner. There is a presentation symbol which
Okay,
says restore.
done it. What does it say? B3 says enforce MSP since intermediaries play a vital role in the functioning of the market. And I want to tell you something. Privatization increases intermediaries. It does not decrease them. It just means it can decrease the number of intermediaries, but it vastly increases the power of intermediaries. Your middleman is your middleman will come dressed in Armani and Gucci's and Benetton, not in dhotis and veshtis. That will be the difference. Enforce MSP since intermediaries play a vital role in the functioning of the market, and at times they have advance contract with farmers. In respect of all essential commodities, we should protect farmers' interests by mandating through summary provisions, statutory provisions, that no farmer trader transaction should be below MSP wherever prescribed. That is those 23 crops. By the way, another part of this report says we need fast track courts. We need fast track courts to deal. Food security being the utmost concern, for the time being, there should be a ban on the trading of essential commodities in the future market. That is also there. But there is one clause for which I have not made a slide, which calls for fast track courts. And today, the law excludes the courts. This report called for fast track special courts for farmers. And this law, these three laws, say the courts cannot interfere. And you know who was the chairman of that report? There was a chief minister, some of you may remember, called Narendra Modi. And he was the chairman of, you can even now, Srinivas, go up to the Consumer Affairs Ministry and download this report. One thing, they have removed some sections, which therefore you read the report without knowing who was the chairman, who was the member. But I have photographic evidence for you up there, Praveen, of Mr. Modi handing over that report to Dr. Manmohan Singh. Now, these are the things that Mr. Modi put his signature to as Chief Minister of Gujarat, which he is denying the farmers as Prime Minister of India. It is exactly as I said, the hypocrisy they showed in 2014, promising Swaminathan formula in 12 months and doing the opposite within the first 3 months. Okay, so that answers, I hope, your question. Now, I request you to go to Pari and read my piece on this, on the global conspiracy of dreaded terrorists Rihanna and Greta Thunberg to defame the greatest nation on earth. First and foremost, let's look at the tweet that this Rihanna put out. It doesn't explicitly take a stand. It says, why are we not talking about this? It doesn't say good or bad. It says, why are we not talking about this? And please compare that to the tweets of Geeta Gopinath and the Director Communications, who is not an Indian, of the IMF, who openly praise the laws. Openly. Now, they are taking positions. And when the position is in favor of the government, oh, that's wonderful. When the position is in favor, not even anti-government, but you sense that it is pro-farmer, you bring the roof down. And the stupidity with which they have handled it. The Ministry of External Affairs, this is like an appearance before the UN Security Council, they're handling it. I find it hilarious. First it was a conspiracy of one disaffected bunch of, urban Maoists and Nakshals. Then it was Khalistanis and a national threat to national security. Now it is an 18-year-old schoolgirl called Greta Thunberg and a rhythm and blues pop star called Rihanna. It's a global conspiracy. I have written asking, when are we going to see the next dimension, the extraterrestrial conspiracy? When are we going to see that? Because, it gets boring to go on with global conspiracy. Calvin and Hobbes had this lovely saying about extraterrestrial intelligence. The surest proof of extraterrestrial intelligence is that they have left us alone. Extraterrestrial aliens don't want to come and interfere in your world. Looking at the mess it is, they think it's best we stay away from here. The surest proof of extraterrestrial intelligence is that they've left us alone. Now, that's how idiotic this government and its Ministry of External Affairs makes all Indians look as a result of this kind of behavior. There was a secret conspiracy. Rihanna was paid $2.5 million. That woman is worth tens of billions of dollars. Yeah, she's worth tens of billions of dollars. Go and look at her net worth. And, what does one say beyond this nonsense? Yeah. About your celebrities. Look at it. The thing is, your celebrities spent the last 2.5 months without expressing one word of concern for the farmers. There were always the exceptions. Okay. The Swara Bhaskars, the Richa Chaddas, one of whom I'm proud to say was my old student. But so there were these 5-10 usual suspects who have always stood up in popular causes. But the main big Bollywood bosses, none of them said a word about lakhs of men, women, and children sitting out in the cold, 200 of them dying. Not one word. But when Rihanna said something, everybody is out. And you have a hashtag, India Together. My dear, India Together against whom? Against your farmers. These are the villains of the plot. Right? India Together against the farmer. India Together against whom? It is like, I summed it up in one line. The thought of these dreaded terrorists, Rihanna and Greta, in one line, I will say this to you. As fiction, it would be insanely funny. As reality, it is merely insane. Then, I think those are.
Yeah.
And JP, please, don't even expect me to dignify those comments with any seriousness here. Give me a break. Better Rihanna. Oh, yeah.
Right. So, last questions. Again, I'll group these things. One is on the talk, one is slightly off the topic, but again, relevant to what we're going through. So the first thing is, Abhinay is asking, Abhinay has two questions. First one is, what is the story around the Supreme Court's interference? Is it just to water down the movement? Gautam also had a question about, how do we, Jay Kumar and Gautam also had questions around, how do we look at the Supreme Court's role in all these allegations? And also, first one is around Supreme Court, right? And the other thing is, Abhinay also asked, since this law will lead to the crippling of farmers' incomes, and that will happen over the next few years, why would BJP make such an electoral blunder, tactically speaking? These are ones. The off-topic questions, Sainath Garu, are...
Let me answer these.
Fair. Yeah.
Abhinay, which Abhinay is this? Sama?
Sama, yeah.
Hi Abhinay. Very long time. Abhinay, let me first answer this thing of farmers' incomes. I've shown you what the farmers' incomes are. Okay. How much more are you going to cripple those here? Huh? And why are they doing it as elections are fought on many different issues. Last time, remember that all indications was that the government would do very badly. And then you had Pulwama, Bagalkot, and then you had a switch around. You had before some state assembly elections, the dissolution of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Yeah, there were always dramatic emergencies that would come up. Yeah, just at the right time. If you want to look at conspiracy theories, look at those. So the thing is that the electoral calculus, in fact, I think that they have made a very serious blunder, and it's not the first time. Remember that demonetization was a gigantic electoral blunder, which they overcame by changing the agenda, by focusing. Right now, that time, they did it with Pulwama and Bagalkot. Now they are scraping the barrel and doing it with Rihanna and Greta Thunberg. But it tells me that they will try many other things. The government has adopted 5 strategies in dealing with the farmers' agitation. Number 1 was to say, hey, these guys don't matter here. There are a handful of disgruntled Sardarjis, ex-Khalistanis from Punjab and a few hotheads from Haryana. Don't even talk to them. They didn't talk to them. They didn't talk to them when all the time the farmers were calling for consultations. The second line of the struggle was to, the second thing in the struggle was to discredit. Okay, but actually the third, I'll come back to the second later. The third line was to unleash. The second line was to say consultation. We are there with you. We'll talk to you. The BJP has a long history, and this was in fact number 1. The BJP has a long history of tactic of good cop, bad cop. Mr. Advani was the bad cop who would say bold, outrageous things, and Mr. Vajpayee would go and cry on television and say, Babri Masjid, saddest day of my life. Okay. Now the role has been reversed. Mr. Modi plays the bad cop. He makes speeches in Madhya Pradesh, elsewhere. They call the farmers to talk about the farm laws, and he speaks about the grand Ram temple that is being built in Ayodhya. So he's the bad cop. Who are the good cops? Unfortunately, they have very poor quality star material for the good cops. That time there was a Vajpayee and an Advani. The lead villain was as prominent as the lead hero. Here, they suddenly dug out 2 cabinet members. Abhinay, but for the struggle of the farmers, this country would not have known that it had an agriculture minister. And because of that struggle, when I went and spoke at Singhu, the first thing I did was to thank the farmers for letting the country know that there's a guy who's called agriculture minister. And now some of us even know his name, which in his own state was not well known, Narendra Tomar. So the Rajnath ji and he play the good cop. At least Rajnath ji has some eminence. Narendra Tomar, give me a break. So they will go out and say, entirely a PR exercise. We are with the farmers. We are coming to you every day. Not once did they give a proposal in writing. Not once. They float things, and say this happened, that happened, this happened. Not once have they, we are all asking, we are all placing the onus of compromise on the farmer. That's his life. Why is there no onus on the government to repeal the laws? Because this country runs on the ego of 1.5 men. No one in the many BJP leaders know that this is leading to disaster, know that it is pointing to disaster. They dare not speak. Can a Narendra Tomar do anything else except do what his boss tells him? This is, in English history, there is that old tale of King Canute who ordered the waves to retreat. The job of these guys, the job of the BJP cabinet ministers is to roll back the waves. On the orders of King Canute of Central Vista. So now, unfortunately, the waves are getting the better upper hand over the courtiers who are drowning. But the second tactic was to show how reasonable we are. I'll tell you something, Abhinay. Let me put this reasonableness in one frame example. I pass a law ordering death sentence on Abhinay Sama. Then there is outrage. And I come and say, I am fully willing to negotiate. I want to consult with you. We can discuss whether it will be death by hanging or by firing squad. This is the consultation that is taking place. It's post facto. You have passed a law destroying them and then saying you're willing to discuss modalities. Also, the government has said it is willing to make 12, 13 amendments. So reasonable. Because the farmers raised 15 objections, 12, 13. Here is a government that is admitting that 90% of its law is worthy of amendment. If it is 90% to be changed, you are much better off scrapping it and creating a new law with consultation. 3 RTIs done by Anjali Bardwaj demanding to know what were the pre-consultations done. The government of India's reply first was, there is no record of any such consultation with farmers or anybody. Then they realized that they had made a blunder. So 20 days later, they sent her a second reply. The matter is now sub judice, so we cannot give out this information. And that brings us to the third and the most important tactic has been to unleash the power of establishment, police, paramilitary, government, but even more damagingly, the power of the captive intellectuals and Godi media to demonize these farmers as Khalistanis, as this, as that, anti-nationals, with direct links, from salary, from incomes of 3,450 a month. They are somehow putting up a fund to pay Rihanna. And this, Abhinay, is where you and I have to respond. When a sold out intelligentsia, a sold out intellectual class, when all the think of Delhi, who is the biggest think tank here? ORF. Who owns it? Ambani. Who is the richest Indian in the world? Ambani. Who is the biggest media owner in the world? Ambani. Now, do you really expect the media to take a stand on laws of which Mr. Ambani is directly the beneficiary? The man owns between 18 and 25 channels, including all your ETV channels except Telugu. Except Telugu, he owns all the ETV channels. Not Ramoji Rao, not for the last 7 years, 10 years. Okay, now, those media that he does not own, he is the biggest advertiser. Are you going to seriously expect the media to scrutinize the conflict of interest, to to scrutinize all of this. They have unleashed an incredible. By the way, I ought to tell you this. In fact, I need to tell all you techies this. Ever since the farmers' agitation heated up, I have been under serious attack, attempts to undermine Pari, among other things. My Wikipedia page has been vandalized 15 times in a month. And I know that they're going to try and damage People's Archive of Rural India. I know that. We know. We are expecting it. And Praveen and Vinod and others have spent more than one sleepless night trying to get us out of the trouble that some application error caused, which could tomorrow just as easily come as a hostile attack. So all these things are happening. That third tactic to me is the most effective, which the propaganda that they're doing and attacks. The fourth is to try dividing people on the basis of region, religion, caste, Jat versus non-Jat farmer. Who will take the leadership? Then Punjabi versus Haryanavi. They can't get on. They're fighting over water, river water. Sikh versus Hindu. And in UP, Hindu Tikait versus Muslims. Remember Muzaffarnagar and all those battles. So they are trying very hard. Politically, Khalistani and leftists, etc., etc. This was the fourth tactic. The fifth is the most dangerous, the most worrying for me. You got 2 lakhs of people up there, 3 lakhs maybe, who knows? And they are being subjected to insanitary conditions, barricading, barbed wire fencing. I'm trying to say that this kind of punishment gulag atmosphere, if you have an outbreak of COVID, I will hold this government responsible for it. It terrifies me. It terrifies me, the possibility. And look at the way they are pushing these people like into, Bantustan or something like that. It's their country. It's their capital city. Now, in all this, there is an incredible input from the Supreme Court of this country. Please understand that the job of the Supreme Court, the one thing that they haven't done is their job. The job of the Supreme Court is to rule on the constitutionality of the laws. Now, the Supreme Court of India has a stellar record. It has a fabulous record with aberrations during emergencies, but it has a great, great record on constitutionality. This is a court, Supreme Court of India is a court which has said directive principles of state policy are as important as fundamental rights, which I think is one of the greatest judgments or remarks or observations of any court in this country, in this country's history. So I am by nature very, very biased in favor of the Supreme Court. And I'm telling you this, it has simply not ruled on the constitutionality of laws. Love jihad, burning issue in front of them, being misused every day. They don't rule on the constitutionality of it. On the attacks on journalists, on everything else, immediate hearing for Arnab Goswami. But Farooqi, a comedian who is jailed for jokes he never made, but which were overheard by some BJP leader's son, saying that he intends to make them. This goes back to South Africa under apartheid, when Steve Biko was put on trial for his thoughts. A comedian is put on trial for mentally the jokes that he has prepared. And he has spent days and days in jail, and they are still dragging their feet about releasing him. And still trying to thwart. Now, third, so love jihad, the freedom of expression, one law after the farm laws, on which of these has the Supreme Court ruled on the constitutionality of it? Is it the court's job to set up committees? Let me tell you the history of this committee, and let me tell you a small fun part about my role in this committee. What previous committees the Supreme Court has started. I'll give you one example. A few years ago, the Supreme Court put together the finest committee. I applauded the court. I applauded the court when they put together the 5 top scientists of India in the field on a committee to study whether GM crops should be introduced, trials should be allowed in food crops, etc. One of those top scientists is a great scientist from your CCMB in Hyderabad. Okay, the top 5 scientists, what did they do? Those 5 scientists gave a phenomenal report, and summarizing in one word their most urgent recommendation, they said, moratorium. Do not go ahead with this. This has very serious implications. Do not go ahead with this. They ruled as genuine, true scientists would. They put out there, do not get into this GM food crop thing. Do not get into these trials. It needs a hell of a lot. Also remember that Jairam Ramesh, as minister, consulted all the states and union territories, and every one but one state rejected and called for moratorium. Kerala called for a 50-year moratorium. Gujarat voted, of course, for it, if I remember rightly. After all this, after its own committee, the Supreme Court said nothing, did nothing. It allowed the addition of one more member to the committee Paintal, who came and wrote a dissent note and went. But it didn't matter. The 5 original committee were unanimous. Now the Supreme Court abandoned its own committee. The government has acted as if that committee never existed. It goes for GM mustard, it goes for everything else. So, okay. Second thing, I was named as one of the potential members of the committee on December 17th by the Chief Justice of India, for which I'm very grateful and flattered, as I said. The press, the media were all over me on December 17th when he said in open court, you should have independent committee with perhaps people like P. Sainath should be there, etc. Now, the Chief Justice Bobde is a man who knows agriculture. He has represented Shetkari Sangatna and farmers in Maharashtra when he was a lawyer. I declined. I declined because 1, what is the past history of the committees? 2, please tell me about the constitutionality of the laws. That is what I want from my Supreme Court. Please tell me that these laws are ultra-virus, that they are unconstitutional, that they are violative of states' rights. Nothing. Third, I said, if we are to give respect to a committee, please let us give respect to the Swaminathan committee. You're asking a committee to 2 months. In 2 months, this 4-member committee is to give solutions for these problems. Talk to the farmers and give solutions for these problems. The Swaminathan committee took 3 years. The most distinguished people in their respective fields. The retired chief of NABARD, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, foremost agro scientist of India. 8 people. I mean, they gave a phenomenal set of reports. When I look at what those have happened to those reports, you and I in 2 months will do something better. We know that this is a farce. So I declined. Okay. So the Supreme Court is evading its responsibility in my eyes. It has not, as I said, to my great disappointment, because I have always, the Supreme Court ruled. I remember one of the cases that I had something to do with when Vilasrao Deshmukh, Nagpur High Court Nagpur bench of Bombay, fined him, 25,000 rupees for aiding and abetting a money lender who is an MLA, Congress MLA. He went to the Supreme Court, which knocked out the 10,000 rupee fine and 25,000 rupee fine and made it 10 lakhs. That is what I expect of my Supreme Court. And so this is my position on. I think that I cannot find one issue on which the courts have ruled against the executive on a serious substantive issue in the last 6 years. Yeah.
One last question, Sainath Garu, and this is perhaps much more relevant to IT professionals and all working professionals here as well. And this Anand is asking, and you mentioned about these labor, how they were passed, and is curious as to why there are no protests around this new labor code.
Anand, there were huge protests around the labor code. Remember that November 26th was a giant Kisan Mazdoor strike across the country. And the working class came out in support of the farmers. They came out against the labor code. Your media are not going to cover them unless they make themselves heard the way the farmers have made themselves heard. I was present in some of those protests. Please, if you go on to the Kisan Sabha's website, you'll find hundreds of video clips from every corner of the country. Do you know that? Also, I have to tell you this. These protests did not begin in September. In 2018, in Mumbai, the present phase, protests have been on for 30 years since the new economic reforms. What about all those protests against land acquisition, Anand? Don't forget those. Don't forget the protests over. What is the dam in bigger than Narmada in Telangana? What is our project?
Polavaram project.
Polavaram. Okay, so you had huge protests over that. You had legal battles over that. You had court battles over that. But the present phase of protests goes back to 2018, when 40,000 peasants, very poor Adivasi farmers, marched in 182 kilometers. They marched in 38 to 40 degrees heat, barefoot because they cannot afford footwear. They marched from Nashik to Mumbai and came here. The 40,000 became 50,000 because the workers, the middle classes, everybody joined them. That became the biggest demo ad of the primary classes seen in Azad Maidan in 25 years. The bank employees unions, the insurance employees unions, all showed up there in strength to distribute food and water packets. In 2018, November, in the rally outside Parliament, All India Bank Employees Association, All India Bank Officers Association, various trade unions, all came there to support the farmers, who, in turn, on November 26th, went with the working class demands incorporated into their own agendas as well. So there have been protests. The other thing is, why are there not protests as big elsewhere as there are in Punjab or Haryana? Let me answer this question in 1 minute. More than something like 80 journalists during the pandemic, 80, have had FIRs filed against them. They've had FIRs filed against them. They've been arrested under Disaster Act, Epidemics Act, Sedition Act, and UAPA. unlawful activities prevention. Like one Kerala journalist spent a month in jail when he tried to cover the Hathras case. Thousands of journalists have lost their jobs to the corporate sectors using the pandemic to kill us. Okay. Now tell me, I think you will agree that every working journalist is concerned over this. But are we all on the streets everywhere in equal numbers? We're not. We're not anywhere on the streets because we don't have the strength. We do not have the organized power. We have been reduced to contract laborers who can be laid off at moment's notice. Therefore, we do not have the wherewithal to take on the bosses. And when a bunch of poor farmers takes it on, we should be applauding them. Does the fact that there is no journalist demonstrations all over the country about the killing of journalists, the beating up of journalists, the sacking of journalists, that there are no nationwide demonstrations, does it mean that we journalists are not concerned? Oh, we're very concerned because it could be us next. Our inability and incapability to launch major protests hamstrings us. So please don't think that people elsewhere in India are not worried, or not only farmers but non-farmers and workers and working class are also worried about it. Yeah.
Before I say thank you and close the session, I have a request to all the people who are viewing this. The first thing is the issue that Sainath started this talk with, the legal issue. There is a really good article that's on Pari, and it's titled something like, "And you thought it was only about the farmers." But request all the readers to read, and all the viewers to read, and please share that article, because if we believe that this does not affect us, then we are wrong. Please do share that widely. And also look up Shock Doctrine, a book by Naomi Klein, which clearly talks about how laws are passed to change, and as Shekhar was saying in his article, time to strike now. So these are things that a few requests that I have from our end. And once again, a huge thank you to all the people who have logged in, who are commenting, who are viewing this. Thanks to the Chaurasta team, which is coming up with these brilliant songs. Sainath Garu, huge thank you for agreeing to do this. It's been close to 2 hours, more than 2 hours now. But one last parting comment from you, as ForIT, as responsible citizens, what is it that you think we should be doing to contribute to this protest?
You'll remember that in 2018 March, the Nashik Mumbai March, and again 2018 November, the Delhi rally outside Parliament. We had doctors for farmers, lawyers for farmers, techies for farmers, students for farmers. I would say you can do this. Immediately, one thing you can do. In your neighborhood, in your block, in your colony, in your taluka or district, you form. And thank you, because it reminds me of the solution that I have to offer. What I have to offer is a basis for a solution. Right now, that it doesn't exist. The techies for farmers, that group sprang up here at Azad Maidan. Independently, people elsewhere started forming these groups. Software engineers for farmers. Do you know we had a group in Thane or Vasai, auto rickshaw drivers for farmers on their own initiative with CITU. You can help enormously, but first as citizens, then as IT, and combining your skills to do what you can do best. One, we form everywhere in every district in the country. There needs to be Save Farmer, Save Nation committees. Save your locality. You don't have to strive to be big. As the forum I represent, Nation for Farmers, we are happy to be a coordinating or nodal body. We are not a secretariat or a centralizing structure at all. Yeah. All these groups, 2,000 students in Delhi universities, to college students came out in November 2018. And my friends, even now in Singhu and Tikri, there are volunteers from JNU and other Delhi universities working there, trying to help the farmers gain some degree of comfort or less degree of harassment. The second one, you form these committees. The second is the major demand, I think, has got to be this. Again, you can do it at the state level. One is a demand for a special session of parliament, not 3 days, 5 days tokenist, full session of parliament to fight for, to debate and discuss nationally the Swaminathan Commission report, the larger agrarian crisis, and all related issues, meaning issues like rights and entitlements of women farmers, of Dalit farmers, of Adivasi farmers. If we don't take those on board, there is no long-term possibility of a solution. Third, it would discuss privatization of water, which is going on very rapidly without using those words. Third, I'm saying that all of you, and you have the skills here to set these networks, all of you should run campaigns, these committees, for boycott of those products of those corporations that are directly causing losses to the farmers. Yeah. Corporate boycotts. Believe me, the corporate world is terrified of them. It's really worried about that. That's a place where you can help the farmers fight back. 4, I'm saying that you can even bring in local demands. Farmers in Mehboob Nagar district have certain specific particular problems. Bring that on there. 5, you can, again, your skills will come in here, set up a database which is monitoring in these different committees how the mandis are functioning after the laws have come in. The APMCs, the mandis, the MSP, is it being met? On which crops it's being met, where it's not being met. This is something you guys can create a proper framework, a tabular, and you can put it up on your own website, share it with us for the Nation for Farmers, dillichalo.in website. You can take all this. So there are many, many things that we can do. Yeah? And many things that are specifically techie skills.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sainath Garu. I'll leave you all with this last bit. For the last month and a half, ForIT has been standing in solidarity. 2 months, more than 2 months now. ForIT has been standing in solidarity and supported the farmers. In fact, we've seen farmers in distress, and tomato farmers in Nalgonda, other places, for example, where they were forced to sell their produce at a loss at ₹2 a kilo. And we have now sold more than actually 15 tons of their farm produce directly to the people here in Hyderabad. If any of you want to be a part of this, if you want these to be put at your places, please do reach out to ForIT. Please do contribute. Once again, thanking you all for joining us. Thank you, Sainath Garu. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Praveen, can you hang on a minute?
Yes.
Tell me when we are out of the public loop.
Just a minute, please. Yes, Sainath Garu, we are. Yeah. I'll also ask Kiran to join for a minute.
Yeah. So did this answer the question? Did it address the issues that you wanted, Praveen?
Yes. Ane okkasari meeting join ava Sainath Garu. Yeah. A lot of them actually, in fact, as we already spoken about this, right? People believe it's only large or restricted to only Punjab and Haryana. Why not right now? What are the problems? Sorry?
Rich farmers.
The rich farmers, these are WhatsApp forwards, and other like this. The BJP right-wing troll, they say these things. Oh, how can a farmer afford a washing machine? How can a farmer afford a TV? Which means these are all paid agitations. Right? So all of these things, there's a calculation that's going on as well. They're paid for two months, which means they've spent 33 crores on diesel, which means this is all sponsored by the Sharad Pawar group. These sort of things are there. So
Sharad Pawar favors these laws.
of course, right?